Bellwright, the greatest potential I've seen in a while. Hey guys, I wanted to make this video because of a game I've recently been playing non-stop and I felt like it deserves some more attention. I am talking about Bellwright, an early access game that I recently came across after trying to find similar games to Sengoku Dynasty. I hadn't heard about this game at all until a couple of weeks ago, and I am definitely glad I did. So I wanted to talk about why this game made me want to talk about it so much. The potential here is great, and I really hope we get to see the finished product eventually. So as I mentioned, this is an early access title, and this is apparent in a few things. However, of other games I've played, I definitely think this is one of the most well-made early access titles I've seen. While there are things unfinished, such as the voice acting in this game, what we have right now is enough to leave me absolutely impressed. If you know games such as Sengoku and Medieval Dynasty, you might get a rough starting idea about certain aspects of the game. A huge part of the game is about building your villages and recruiting people, and as you progress, you unlock better tiers and buildings and such. There are a ton of things to unlock and organize, and it's all very satisfying. However, one of the main things that made me get the game is how you can actually convert your villagers to followers that come along with you on adventures, fight, and how eventually you literally can have entire armies follow you as you liberate the villages in the regions. There is a lot of depth in this aspect, and I've barely scratched the surface. And while the army building aspect is not something I love per se, it is still very cool. Villagers you get have stats and not much personality. Think of Skyrim's companions and then simplify their personality even more, though add complexity to their stats. One follower might be good at two-handed combat, another at archery, and so forth. Other villagers are suited to be working in your settlement, with some being good at building, others at hunting, etc. I really love this system, and despite the followers passing out like flies when I take them out in the field, I even got attached to some of them and learned their names, which is surprising considering how they don't have a personality. What is nice about them as well is that they all have voice lines as they walk around and pass by you. In fact, all NPCs seem to have voice lines, and in the villages you go to, you can talk to all of them and ask them about themselves. They all have a little history. However, keep in mind that as they state in their store page, all the voice acting right now appears to be voiced by AI. This is claimed to be temporary. If they do eventually add full voice acting to the game, I'll be extremely impressed, as all the NPCs have a surprising amount of dialogue. I would definitely be interested to see the finished version on that front. Next, the building aspect. While building eventually becomes very slow, it's very satisfying to start unlocking all the different buildings and watch as your villagers build everything. Something I didn't mention is that unlike games like Sengoku Dynasty, you don't have to build everything yourself. Instead, as long as there are materials, villagers you recruited will work on building anything on their own accord. This mechanic works surprisingly well, which makes me sad that another game that relies a lot on having others build stuff for you, namely Palworld, has so many pathing issues that make it very flawed compared to Bellwright. This makes it even more impressive for me that Bellwright seems to have very little issues on that front. You can also customize in detail on where you want villagers to focus on, the items you want made, and if they should just always keep an X amount of items in storage, etc. Very rewarding once you perfect the autonomy of your village. This is one very cool thing about the followers. They have an autonomy that works in the benefit of your settlement. You can also make them better and increase their stats with books, and their stats also increase as they work around your settlement. It's all very organic and nice. So another main thing about the game is that as you play, you eventually start liberating regions and the villagers, wipe bandit camps, and so on. This is a cool mechanic. However, we will talk about a couple of problems with that in the negatives and feedback section. Otherwise, it's very satisfying to work through the map slowly and clean it out. Additionally, something that I did not expect and I'm still pleasantly surprised by are the quests. There are a lot of quests in the game, mainly in the villages you go to, but there are also some scattered around the world as you explore. A majority of the quests are about providing certain items, and this is not surprising based on the type of game this is. However, the game also has a story, and the quests give you a good enough reason for the things you have to do that it makes the fetch type of quest not feel bad to do. There's also a main narrative and story, which I'm very interested to see the rest of, so yeah, kudos for that. The exploration, while extremely perilous, also feels cool. It reminds me in a way of the first Dragon's Dogma. There was also a lot of running around there as you went from point A to point B, but it does not feel as bad as it could. And let's also mention how nice the game looks. As you can see from the video, the game looks very nice and polished. The winter and the snow and everything looks wonderful. The characters leave something to be desired, it's true, but the environment makes up for it, I think. So we've talked about the building, the followers, the quest, the exploration. That leaves the combat. And we have to talk about the combat while also starting to talk about my feedback and negatives about the game so far. The combat is not bad, it's different. Your hits are directional based on where you move your mouse, which definitely takes some getting used to. The problem is the difficulty. The only thing that prevents the game to be friendly for people looking for a more casual time is the fact that when you find yourself in combat, you basically have to get good, get lucky, or die. There are ways to decrease the difficulty. Mainly, you are eventually supposed to have a lot of followers with you to help with the combat, as bandit camps have a lot of enemies, especially the bigger camps. But that brings up another problem, and that is while you have fast travel available for you, and you can build fast travel points wherever as long as there is a road, that does not go for your companions. Instead, if you want your followers to be with you in all those fights, you have to manually walk all the way with them or wait for them to catch up, which takes forever, especially for longer distances. Not to mention they might just die on the way if they come across enemies while you wait for them. It's definitely a hardcore system, probably to introduce extra strategy elements. However, what ended up happening for me was I would just try to solo everything while I waited for my companions, and 9 out of 10 times I just managed to kill entire camps by myself before they even got there, after 10 reloads at least. So that brings us to the feedback. What could make the game even better and reach the maximum potential for me? 1. Add more customization to your world and difficulty. Right now, you have some decent options on how your world is, such as turning raids to your village on and off, decreasing their difficulty up to a point, increase damage, decrease food spoilage, and increase weapon durability, etc. One notable thing that prevents these settings from being perfect is specifically the damage tweaks. You can increase damage of melee and ranged weapons up to 400%. That sounds great, right? It is, except that also makes the enemies deal just as much damage. This sort of defeats the purpose, even though fights are over more quickly. Most enemies die in one hit once you break through their guard, but that goes for you too. One unlucky hit is all it takes for most fights. So yeah, I definitely hope and think they should add a separation between the damage you deal versus the damage the enemies deal. Another optional setting would be to stop equipment from breaking entirely, tweak the building speed or material amounts needed, etc. Number 2. Fast traveling with companions. I saw a video that said it was added, but I believe it was only added for traveling by boat, something I haven't even touched on in my playthrough so far. The option to have followers fast travel with you would be a game changer. I would also like to point out that the suggestions I'm mentioning are made with them being optional in mind, so don't come at me with claims that would ruin the hardcore aspects of the game. We can already make the game easier to a point, so this argument is pointless. It would only give you more control to perfect your playthrough to your liking, and that's good. Number 3. Customization of character and NPCs. Right now, your player character, including every single NPC, male and female, seem to be sharing the same preset faces and hair, making most of the NPCs look identical, including you. Customization is extremely limited, with only being able to be a brown-haired white male or female character. My hope is that, especially for the NPCs, variety will be added so you don't see the same face every 2 people you meet. Things such as blonde hair, different colored eyes, and so forth. Number 4. Add specific lines for certain NPCs that earn followers. I've come across a few special recruitable characters. One very notable example is Sir Sterling, a runaway knight that you have to build his trust with a few quests until he eventually joins you. That sounds awesome, right? What would make it even better is if those special NPCs you recruit have special lines besides the default lines that villagers get when you recruit them. For example, the knight could thank you for your help or say he won't forget what you did sometimes, a lady you helped get out of debt would remember that, etc. Just little things like that. There's already so much dialogue in the game for characters you meet, I think it would not be too extreme to add that as well. So, should you get the game right now in this state? In my opinion, if you've seen the gameplay and like what you see, while being aware of the work in progress stuff, yes. While the game is early access, it's polished enough that you don't feel like you're playing a half-baked product. Instead, you feel like you're playing a game that's already great to play, while knowing that if the devs keep working on it, it can only get better. However, keep the current state of the difficulty in mind, and also the fact that you will be hearing a lot of AI voice acting in the game. Also remember that the building aspect is great, but can also take a long time until you get your village going with bringing in resources automatically. Another thing I want to mention before I forget is that I read that this game was made by a dev team that had a previous early access title that they dropped. This is troubling to hear, however, I'm hoping that the potential and success of this game would not be a repeat of the past. The last big update of the game was in late November, and so I'm still optimistic that the game will actively continue being worked on and improve. I'm sure I'll think of more things to talk about this game as soon as I finish this, but those are my thoughts so far. What do you think? Have you played Bellwright? Are you interested in it? Are you also as excited to see future updates about the game as I am? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, or want me to make more videos like this, let me know. Bye bye!